Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another day here at the Damage Report, still under lockdown, but now alone in a big, creepy, abandoned building. But we've also got a big, creepy, abandoned guest, Jordan Uhl. How's it going?
What kind of intro is that? What? Thank you?
Sorry. I'm not an improv kid. I don't know. That was the best I could do. No, a big, awesome Twitter behemoth guest, Jordan Uhl.
Sure, well, we'll go with that one. Thanks for having me, John.
Kid, Jordan Uhl.
There we go. I like that one.
Streamer extraordinaire. Well, look, I'm very glad to have you here. Everybody who's watching the stream live, welcome. Obviously, there were some tech difficulties. As is usual, this is a complex digital world. And sometimes services just fail. We don't necessarily have any idea why. It just sort of happens. It doesn't have anything to do with us moving to the studio. It's some other company's product. I don't even know what city it's based in, but seems like it's working now. So thank you for joining us. If you are already here, feel free to hit the like button and share the stream to let people know that it has finally started. We are going to be talking about a lot today. I know that Jordan has been like boiling over with his takes on the RNC. Me too. We've been holding it in. It was a silent pre-stream. But we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be breaking down a lot of the videos that you probably are a little bit familiar with from last night. But we've also got updates on Jacob Blake, which we talked about in yesterday's show. The Biden plan to win over Republicans. How's that working out for him? As well as updates on Portland as well. Before we jump into it, Jordan, how you doing? It's been a little bit since we spoke.
It has. All right. Just been trying to keep busy. Been doing a lot of reading.
What you reading lately?
Yeah. Oh God, a few different books. That Hate Inc. by Matt Taibbi, finished that. The People Know by Thomas Frank, and doing a reread of Death of the Liberal Class by Chris Hedges. Just trying to, really demoralize myself going into this election with those three.
Exactly. I like your new setup. It straddles the line between badass and like you're like secured in a bunker because of how bad things are in this country. Like you've got the cool banner. Like I can imagine someday you're gonna like drop it over the side of a building as flames rage in the background. So very glad to have you here. I am seeing some comments about the audio quality. I don't know. I can't tell until the video goes up. I can tell you that when I tested it, the audio sounds really good. I got a Yeti right here. I think it's the exact same mic that Jordan's got. Is it the Yeti Blackout?
Yep.
Yeah, it's the same. I don't know. Yeah, if it's bad, I don't know. It's the internet. Skype sucks. What can I say? You can send it the best quality video and audio, and it will turn it into hot garbage. And speaking of hot garbage, we're going to turn to the RNC. Actually, one or two things right before we get to the RNC. I do want to let you know that, as always, following the live show, we do record interviews with a variety of awesome guests, candidates, activists, academics, everybody, just awesome people. And today on the show, once again, we have got Varshini Prakash. And you know what she's coming on to talk about? Her new book, which I got an early copy of, Winning the Green New Deal. It's not just Varshini. It is basically everyone who has been working to make sure that we get the Green New Deal, the best messengers and activists and all of that around it. This book is also available on shoptyt.com as I believe it's a pre-order item. So you can go to shoptyt.com and pre-order a copy of Winning the Green New Deal. Basically, if we get the Green New Deal, it's going to be because of the work of the people in this book, and they're laying out in the book how they plan to do that. So she's going to be joining the show a little bit later on. We'll be talking about it. It's not going to be live, so you will have to check the channel a little bit later on, and then we can talk about it. And with that, Jordan, why don't we get into the crazy?
Let's do it.
Okay. So leading up to the leading up to the RNC, the Republicans have been saying that the DNC was just full of hate. Okay. It wasn't about a positive vision of the future. It was just about hate. So I expected a lot different from them. So far, what I've gotten is just insanity. I mean, we knew it was going to be crazy before the speeches started, but let's give you an idea of just some of the stuff that we can barely take time to focus on. So for instance, Joe Biden. Is he just a regular centrist? Is he a radical, or is he a mythological beast?
Biden has promised to take that money back out of your pocket and keep it in the swamp. That makes sense, though, considering Joe Biden is basically the Loch Ness monster of the swamp.
Yeah, no, it lives in the Loch, not in a swamp. It's in the name, actually. It's like the first part of the name. I don't get what that's about. Or, for instance, when he revealed to all of us that one of the most commonly used phrases that we have had to learn as a result of the pandemic, he doesn't quite understand. Take a look.
He delivered PPE to our brave frontline workers.
No, that's not what it is. Wait, what do you think it is? Like, how many times have we had to say or hear PPE? What has he thought that meant this entire time? Apparently, he knows as little about it as his father does. Or, for instance, the attempts to spin the future that some Dems want, but they're not the ones that are actually being nominated right now. Take a look at Tim Scott.
At them, they will turn our country into a socialist utopia. And
is he familiar with utopias versus dystopias? Because that's not going to scare off a lot of people. Anyway, Jordan, look, we're going to dive into the substance of some of their comments. But overall, I just wanted to give people a feel for kind of how this is basically CPAC, except now it's the RNC. Like, it's the crazies. It's a carnival of crazies.
Yeah, this was a really bizarre way to launch this thing. It was, filled with, this whole week is going to be filled with like Trump family members, people close to him. You had Charlie Kirk kicking it off. You had the Republican mayoral candidate from Baltimore, congressional candidate from Baltimore, who's been, attacking Baltimore leadership and Baltimore's community for years. This is just, it's like a whole list of right-wing grievance culture, like this entire narrative. So yeah, it was really bizarre to see some of like the stuff that they said, because it just flies in the face of everything that we see happening in the Democratic Party, much to our frustration. As much as I would love a socialist utopia, that's not going to happen. And Joe Biden is certainly not the person to do that.
Yeah, it's so like the injury is that Bernie doesn't get nominated. It's the insult that they're still going to run against the most centrist remaining Democrat, basically, that could have possibly won, as like a disciple of Mao. And they'll do it, and Fox, of course, that's what they've been wanting. That's what they've been doing for years. Is every Democrat is the craziest, farthest left person that you can imagine, which of course is not actually the case. And look, I would say honestly, I feel like we can draw distinctions between Republicans. Like, we're capable of doing that. This bias isn't sort of a mirror image or anything like that. They're just crazy. And it's not to say that none of their speeches were a little bit different. Tim Scott in general was different than the others that night. I mean, he was spinning a bunch of BS about what the Republican Party actually wants to do, trying to make it as if the Republican Party has ever cared about the poor. Right? Clearly they don't. But he wasn't like getting right up to the line of spreading QAnon theories or anything like that, whereas most of them were. And so we're going to delve into a few of these areas, but like Don Jr. there, the hashtag cocaine trended on Twitter afterward. That's not a good start to your convention when people aren't exactly sure if the president's son, who, by the way, shouldn't be there anyway, he has worked at his dad's real estate company. That's who he is. And he's giving speeches about the future of American foreign policy and stuff like that. Anyway, I don't know what I expected, but it was a weird one. And with that, why don't we launch into the next area of this? So Kimberly Guilfoyle, formerly of Fox, formerly, dating Gavin Newsom, has changed a bit over the past few years. She wants you to believe that if Joe Biden gets elected, this will not simply be a Democratic president once again. It won't just be a sort of red commie thing. It is going to be totalitarianism. Take a look.
They want to destroy this country and everything that we have fought for and hold dear. They want to steal your liberty, your freedom. They want to control what you see and think and believe so that they can control how you live. They want to enslave you to the weak, dependent, liberal, victim ideology to the point that you will not recognize this country or yourself.
Okay, so there's a few things there. So one is obviously, and it's going to get worse from here on out, she's screaming at the top of her lungs. And look, there's nothing I hate more than people trying to, get you to not pay attention to the political views of a woman because of her tone or whatever. But I think that we can all agree that she was actually screaming at the top of her lungs. And I get that it's hard to give a speech in a room with no people in it, but that was a way to do it, I guess. And there she says that the Dems want to control everything that you see and hear. Okay, so I guess this is cancel culture as the genesis for all of your political views. I don't know. And that they want to enslave you to the weak. Enslave you to, I don't know. I don't think that Joe Biden wants to enslave us. I'm not a fan of his. He wasn't my pick. But I don't think that he's Kim Jong-un. I don't think that that's the political approach that he's going to have.
No, and so much of this is built around scare tactics. Like they want, and this is like, there's so much overlap in the rhetoric here that you would see on Fox. So much of it is built on this sensationalized fear mongering about, as we saw, different themes of militant Black Lives Matter groups and Marxism and all of these scary things that the right wing apparatus has been fear mongering for decades. So now we're seeing this play out at the RNC, and this happens every time, but this one felt much different. Maybe it was the empty room, just screaming in the empty room with the echo ricocheting off the pillars and reverberating back into the mic. I don't know what it was about the aesthetic or something, but this felt different than any other RNC, especially in terms of the fear mongering and the scaremongering. None of these things are going to happen. Nothing. Joe Biden himself has literally said, again, to our frustration, nothing will fundamentally change. Mm-hmm. So they're still going out there. Yeah, I wish he hadn't, but he did. And this is what now you're trying to go out there and say he's going to instill totalitarianism and we're going to be slaves to the weak, whatever that means. And maybe they mean just beholden to this type of SJW mindset that they think keeps people suppressed. But it's nothing really will change, sadly.
No, he's already prepping to do oh no, we've got deficits, we can't pass anything big. What are you talking about, totalitarianism? It's just such and people are correcting me. She was married to Gavin Newsom. Totally true. She knows that she's lying. She 100% knows that she's lying. This is what she said to do well on Fox, and I'm sure that being involved with Don Trump Jr. is another. Does she want to run for Senate someday? All of this feels so obviously mechanical. You can watch interviews with her from 12 years ago where she was so reasonable. And now California's like a Mad Max Thunderdome at state level. It's nonsense. And obviously internally not consistent. So which is it? Is it that the Democrats now control everything that you get to see and everything you get to hear, and the mob's coming for you, and they're about to take you, or that they have a victim complex? Not you, not the person who can't see or think or hear anything that you want anymore. It's the others that have the victim complex, when all of this, as you point out, is just scaremongering. It's telling their audience, you're probably pretty scared, and that's good, but you should be more scared because they are coming for you. Black mobs armed with rifles are coming for your kids, and they've got their wops, and they're going to try to make your daughters into sluts. That's their whole thing. And at the same time, the libs have a victim complex. Jesus. Anyway, it's not just Gilfoil, though, on this idea that Joe Biden, is a totalitarian communist. It wasn't just insinuation. It was pretty explicit in the remarks of Maximo Alvarez, the founder of a gasoline distribution company.
Speaking to you today because I have seen people like this before. I've seen movements like this before. I've seen ideas like this before. And I am here to tell you, we cannot let them take over our country. I heard the promises of Fidel Castro, and I can never forget all those who grew up around me, who looked like me, who suffered and starved and died because they believed those empty promises.
Okay, so yeah, look, the guy's obviously like tearing up. I'm a big softy leftist, so I feel empathy for people. Terrible what he had to go through, or the version that he remembers that he had to go through. It's Joe Biden, man. It's Joe Biden. When it was Joe Biden and eventually picked Kamala Harris, there were articles about how Wall Street was cheering for this. from people on Wall Street. They wanted you to know how happy they were that they dodged a couple bullets and they got Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And now it's explicitly Fidel Castro reincarnated in Joe Biden's body. That's what they want us to believe.
Yeah. And I can't help but think back to the primary. When Bernie's comments on literacy programs in Cuba was used as a cudgel by people like Joe Biden to scare Florida Democrats, to scare Southern Democrats and the Democratic establishment and the media, to say, oh my God, his sympathies with Cuban literacy programs would turn Democratic voters away in the general. We can't have this. They'll call him a socialist. Never mind that, Joe Biden and Jill Biden's like one of their great accomplishments during his tenure in the Obama administration was extending an olive branch to Cuba for educational programs. Forget that. Forget that it was an actual plank of the Democratic, platform for years. And it just shows how disingenuous this was. So I really want to remind people, like the tactics they used, and they tricked people into thinking, oh my God, Bernie's sympathies for Cuban literacy programs are going to blow up in his face in the general election if he becomes the nominee. And now what happens? Oh, lo and behold, now Joe Biden is the scary Marxist socialist who's going to turn into the next Fidel Castro. Give me a break. People got to stop taking this seriously.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of our audience has probably got to be feeling like they know what I'm going to say. Yeah. We said at the time when they were saying, you can't have Bernie, they're going to call him a socialist. And we were saying, no, they're going to do that anyway. This is not looking back, and like, oh, God, it turns out that was a bad call. No, we were saying at the time, if it's Buttigieg, then it's Buddha Mao. Like, it's going to be. It doesn't matter who you pick. You can pick Joe Manchin. Okay, it's going to be Kim Jong-un. It doesn't matter who you pick. They only have one gear, and it's red baiting. That's all they have. And we knew it at the time, and they knew it at the time. Nobody on MSNBC or CNN thought, well, if we pick Joe Biden, then Trump will be very reasonable, and he will just contrast his record with what Joe wants to do. Nobody actually thought that. They weren't just stupid. They were stupid and dishonest. And unfortunately, we went that direction, okay? Not because the Dems in control were actually worried about that, but because they didn't want Bernie. They didn't care how the Republicans would message against them. They didn't want to have him. That's all it was. And they got what they wanted, and now we got what they said they would get. So anyway, let's turn back to a little bit of Gilfoil. Many people noted in real time that Kimberly Guilfoyle was expressing herself in a particular way, I'll say. And that got stronger as the speech went on. Here's her close.
Ladies and gentlemen, leaders and fighters for freedom and liberty and the American dream, the best is yet to come.
So, okay. I know that some people are saying they got like vibes of, like somebody's trying out for like the Empire spokesperson in Star Wars or something. Like it always has to be that, or like Mussolini's press secretary or something. I personally was getting strong Galadriel vibes of all shall love me and despair. That's definitely what I was getting. And look, people get to be energetic. And if there was a crowd, maybe it would have felt appropriate. Maybe she was picturing a raucous crowd, and so it seemed context appropriate. But it just, I don't know. For a regular person, like Jordan, you're not a regular person. I'm not a regular person. We dwell neck deep in politics. For a regular person, does that win them over if they're not sure who they want to support?
I can't imagine that would be the needle mover, but one thing like we talked about earlier, the echo in the room because it was empty is very funny and created a weird aesthetic, but also just the overall tone and tenor. Talking like screaming the best is yet to come in the middle of a moment where half the country's out of work. Mm-hmm. For so many people, and it's just the job loss doesn't discriminate based on political party. So when you see this, if you're watching at home and you're out of work, you might not have health insurance, you might be unable to pay your rent or your mortgage payment, which a third of the country is, that's their situation right now. When you have someone like this, who's, close to the president and a family of alleged billionaires and has been in, elite circles for years, telling you the best is yet to come, why would you believe that? And I would hope that most people see through this, because they're just voting. If they support this, they're just voting against their best interest. But like, who buys into that right now? What it just shows that this is like, they really haven't given much thought. They also probably don't want to acknowledge the reality of the situation in these speeches, which we saw people talking about economic successes and gains over the past few years without acknowledging that it had been pretty much wiped out by the pandemic.
And there was some, I forget exactly who it was, some RNC representative or something was like, you know what, I think people in this election are going to ask themselves, are they doing better as of January than they were 4 years ago? No, that doesn't work. We're not in January. We're in the now times, and they're dark times, and I think that people know that. And that's why I wanted to cover this, not just because, it's kind of funny, and it'll get funnier in a moment, but it's, we see what they're screaming about, but what are they quiet about? They're quiet about the pandemic. They'll talk about right to choose, and they'll bring up that woman who said that her life was saved by Donald Trump making some change. But then it turns out that she's actually, like, you can see tweets of her thanking him for it. It was months before it passed. And then it turns out that it wouldn't actually help her anyway. And the whole thing's so suspicious. But they don't talk about the death toll. They don't talk about all who have needlessly died. They try to present Donald Trump as some sort of forceful leader by saying again, maybe the 1,000th time will stick, that he restricted some of the travel from China after the disease was already running rampant invisibly across America. That to me doesn't scream giant leader, but maybe for some people it will. So yeah, they screamed about, cancel culture and fascism and the immigrants and the mobs and all of that. But they were quiet, I think, about a lot of the things that are actually in people's minds that are going to determine, if they're not strictly partisan, who they're going to vote for. I don't know. We'll see. I know. I just want to quickly play this. It's a dark time. If we can get a little bit of fun out of things, let's do it. So take a look at what an individual named Dion posted online.
Ladies and gentlemen, leaders and fighters of the American dream, the best is yet to come.
This is a vinyl.
Is this a Vine? His was great. Get this guy a spokesman job. He really sold that smile. I really believe that the best is yet to come when he said it. So that's the Gilfoil challenge. Everybody post your takes, do your best. It's hard to match Dion there.
That was
anyway.
Nice.
Yeah, no, he did a good job. Okay, with that, why don't we jump to some of what the audience is up to, and then just an update for the director. I'm not going to be playing that last video, the CNN thing. We're going to go to the McCloskeys in just a few minutes, so if you want to jump ahead to the B block. Nora was in first with a super chat saying, haha, good intro. Cheers from Vegas. Thank you. Jordan may have hated it, but at least someone enjoyed it. Kai Allen says, hey, John and Jordan, escapism. Can we talk about the Batman trailer, please? It was awesome. Jordan, thoughts on the Batman trailer?
We talked about this a couple weeks ago. I'm just not a superhero movie fan. I'm the worst person to ask. Sorry.
Right now, though, you actually have company because I didn't watch the Batman trailer. I know I'm a bad guy or whatever, but the Batman movies haven't been good for a bit. I don't really care about DC other than Wonder Woman. And Robert Pattinson is not a draw for me. Even him replacing Ben Affleck, who wasn't a draw for me. I just don't. I don't care. Like, everybody knows how much I love The Rock, right? I don't care about the one he's going to star in. It's a DC movie. It's not going to be great. We just know it's not going to be great at this point. He should have held out for Marvel. Come on, Rock, use your brain. Hold out for Marvel. They would have given it to you eventually. Anyway, Frankie, thank you for your super chat. Rob Shively says, when Jon Stewart stepped down, I felt like I was losing a trusted friend. Now with you and the community you've fostered, I feel like I finally have that back. Thank you, John. That is very nice of you. Thank you for that. I was when Jon Stewart first stepped down, I was sad too. And when John Oliver took over for him, I was like, oh, come on. Like, he's going to try to fill in for 6 months. And I ended up really liking it. I don't know, Jordan, what you thought about Jon Stewart near the end or whatever, but it was a pretty big change.
Yeah, I mean, I like John Oliver more than I like Trevor Noah. I think John Oliver's a lot funnier.
Yeah, it's sometimes John Oliver, his comedy gets a bit too John Oliver, but I love his show. It's like it's my favorite. It's my favorite show.
Yeah.
Okay. Stardust Sakura says, hey John, I finally got my Tokyo Ghoul mask and have scared half of my neighbors already while walking my doggo. It's fine though. Anyways, love your show always and all at TYT. I gotta see that. I don't. That sounds scary, but that's not one of the animes I've watched. But thank you for the super chat. Over on Twitch, Obi Mom Kenobi has gifted 5 additional tier 1 subs. Thank you as always. Very nice of you. Ikdar has gifted some as well. Thank you for that. Let's see. Renchia on Twitch says, hi all. I watched the DNC and yes, some sobbing moments and hits home at times, but watching the RNC was horrendous. All the black people and Latinos and Asian Americans, what are they trying to achieve here? I mean, success in the party, I suppose, and you do what you have to do. Oh, the Kurd Burglar says, I'm picturing Dwight Schrute's speech for Salesman of the Year. That is a good point. You saw that episode, Jordan?
I did. I saw a lot of comparisons on Twitter last night. Yeah, raising the arms. And...
That's a good idea. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
K-Chan says, is that Sarah Palin 2.0? I don't think Sarah Palin ever did anything like that. She was crazy and she didn't know anything, but I don't think she really like screamed or anything. On the Twitch, or sorry, on the Twitter at hashtag TDR Live, a person named Ben Shapiro's dry ass P word says, when did John Iadarola become cool like Anna Kasparian and start using AirPods? He. Yeah, I'm just trying to get a little bit hip. I'm actually this. You know why I'm wearing one? Because I lost the other one. Turns out they're very easy to lose. So I'm gonna replace this soon, but trying to not have some cords if I can avoid it. And by the way, if you're not already over watching hashtag TDR Live, you are missing so many adorable dogs. So if you need a little pick-me-up, go check those out. And with that, why don't we transition to a topic that I have a feeling Jordan is going to be quite interested in. Have you heard of the McCloskeys? You shouldn't have, but you probably have at this point because we elevate the worst people in American society. They're those 2 people that you might remember from St. Louis who decided to point loaded firearms at peaceful protesters. And rather than that ending up with them being shamed and scorned by America, they're now celebrities on the right. So they were speaking at the RNC. Really, it's not an onion thing. Take a look.
The Marxist liberal activist leading the mob to our neighborhood stood outside our home with a bullhorn screaming, "You can't stop the revolution." Just weeks later, that same Marxist activist won the Democrat nomination to hold a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. In the city of St. Louis, that's the same as winning the general election. That Marxist revolutionary is now going to be the Congresswoman from the 1st District of Missouri. These radicals are not content with marching in the streets. They want to walk the halls of Congress. They want to take over. They want power.
Okay. I can't imagine a person less deserving of this ridiculous fear-mongering than Cori Bush. I don't. Jordan, I know you're familiar with Cori Bush. Like, could we be any luckier than if we had 100, nay, 1,000 Cori Bushes running for office all across the country? Instead, he thinks she is so on her face terrifying that not only should we be worried about her holding office, but we should indeed wield firearms to herald her coming.
Yeah, as you said, we would be so lucky to have more Cori Bushes running for office. She's a single mom. She's a community activist. She's a nurse. She's a faith leader. I mean, what more could you ask for on the progressive left? And she embraces a progressive policy platform. And she defeated Lacey Clay, who was an old money corporate Democrat in St. Louis who's done pretty much nothing for the area. And she unseated him. That was fantastic. Huge win. And he's, I think that the comment from him was actually like, really hypes her up and makes her sound even more badass. But that's just, it's bizarre to see that guy and his wife in the RNC talking about, which I think we will get to later, single family zoning laws, which are, effectively new redlining.
Exactly. So yeah, and I know that like a lot of people join politics, like every month, new people are starting to pay attention to politics, and that's good, because maybe they watch TDR. That's great. And so, but you might think, oh, this is how it's always been. I don't think so. I don't think people like the McCloskeys, who are literally, you only know about them because they waved firearms at people that were marching way over there and not threatening them, pointed guns at them, and they've been charged with unlawful use of a gun. Look at him. He has a weapon you would use to patrol the streets of Fallujah, pointed dangerously close to his wife. She starts waving with this bizarre casual teapot stance that no gun safety person would actually abide. She points it past her husband. Their fingers are on the trigger. I don't think his is right here, but so casual. How dare you be near our castle? That's the only reason they're known. And they're speaking at the convention. Julian Castro didn't speak at the DNC. Those two jokers spoke at the RNC. And they might not even be the craziest people that did. But they were there for a reason. And it was to scare you and to dog whistle so loud that dog brains were bleeding. So when Patty started talking a little bit later on in the video, she said they are not satisfied with spreading the chaos and violence into our communities. They want to abolish the suburbs altogether by ending single-family home zoning. This forced rezoning would bring crime, lawlessness, and low-quality apartments into thriving suburban neighborhoods. President Trump smartly ended this government outreach, but Joe Biden wants to bring it back. These are the policies that are coming to a neighborhood near you. So make no mistake, no matter where you live, your family will not be safe in the radical Democrats' America. So we're gonna engage with the substance of that in 1 second. Just briefly, let's acknowledge that they're talking about the threat to suburbs. Would you like to see a picture of the inside of their home? Let's bring this up. You know, suburbs. Is that in Rome? Is that an ancient Roman temple? I don't know, but it's the suburbs. And the only thing funnier than that is they don't actually live in the suburbs. They live in St. Louis. And they initially were talking about how St. Louis was so chaotic. But now the messaging that the right wants is the suburbs are being threatened by this mob. You know, this mob is coming for the suburbs, and they want to bring low-income housing to the suburbs, you know? So these jokers don't even live in the suburbs, but they're game, and they've adapted their narrative to fit it. They're going to pretend they don't even live in St. Louis now, in a literal castle. And so, yeah, no, it's just, you know, your poor suburban women better watch out because this mob is coming for you. Anyway, Jordan, I know that you have thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if they live in the suburbs because the subtext was they're coming for white people. And this feeds into the Great Replacement theory, this conspiracy theory that's like rooted in racism and white nationalism. And this, these housing policies, again, are effectively just new, like a new redlining. This is just a way they can get around explicitly denying loans to black lenders. This is, recipients. So this is just a way that they could say, oh, well, you know, this is only for single family homes. This is only for, homeowners and stuff like that, which, as if someone was a victim of redlining and systemic effects of it for decades and how that impacts education systems and income inequality and all these other disparities, those people are more likely to be in an apartment complex or, sharing apartments across multiple families to make it more affordable and accessible. By doing this is they're trying to insulate themselves from, diversified communities. They want a segregated society. And this is what the subtext of this was. It was, look at these black people coming to our neighborhood. We have to protect ourselves. This could happen to you. And it speaks to this type of fear in right-wing white Americans across the country that, it used to be just like, oh, they're destroying the cities, but now Antifa and Black Lives Matter and Marxists, they're gonna come to our house in the suburbs next, and they're gonna come for you. Never mind that this is just a protest walking past their house. Forget that. It's just they've constructed this and fabricated this narrative to, cater to white fright.
And they look at that particular case study and say the mob of people that were walking near their house, they were threatening by their very nature because of who they are, because of what they want. That's a threat. The pointing guns at them, that's not a threat. That's totally appropriate.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure if Cori Bush had an AR-15, and it pointed at the McCloskeys, I'm sure the right would be like, no, guns are totally safe. You don't have to worry about guns. What you have to worry about is free speech and free assembly. That's the real, like, mortal threat. But weren't we just hearing that the left wants to stop you from being able to exercise all your rights and freedoms? They point guns at you if you assemble peacefully. And that's if it gets to you. What they want, ideally, is for hundreds of police officers to run you over with their SUVs and to brutalize you with tear gas and flashbangs and club you and all of that. This is just if it gets past that. And by the way, as many people are acknowledging in the chat, I see, if we could just bring up this, I almost pulled a bunch of graphics, but let's bring up this screenshot. This couple apparently has a massive history of frivolous lawsuits. I mean, trying to ban people from moving in their neighborhood when it was a gay couple. They launched a lawsuit against somebody who sold them a German Shepherd. They have sued everybody. But we know the right hates frivolous lawsuits. Anyway, it's just, this is when your party isn't a party anymore, when it's a death cult of personality, when it's effectively QAnon with some representatives. Yeah, no, you're going to lift up chuckleheads like this, and these are going to be your thought leaders. You're going to start off with someone like Charlie Kirk, and then eventually you're going to get to the people who you only know because they narrowly avoided shooting somebody. This is America. This is America. And now let's turn to an even darker version of this, someone who was actually shot. Yesterday, we talked about Jacob Blake, who was shot needlessly in the back 7 times by police as he was trying to get into his car with his kids who were right nearby. He, as of that reporting yesterday, was alive. He is still apparently stable. His father says now there are 8 holes in his son's body and he's paralyzed from the waist down. Doctors don't yet know if the injury is permanent. I mean, obviously, it seems like there's a very good chance that that is true. Some people do recover at some point. It is just a miracle that he's alive at all, though. But no matter what, he is going to be severely injured for the rest of his life as a result of what happened with the police just a few days ago.
I don't know. I don't know what to say. I saw people saying, stop sharing the video. We don't have to, show you repeatedly for people to believe us. But, it just seems like nothing will ever change. This dad mentioned that he was paralyzed now. I saw people dredging up past arrests and stuff like that. What's it going to take? Who cares? You don't deserve to get shot on the spot for things you did separate and months ago.
Yeah,
I don't know. And this, even going back to the last story, that last story we just talked about kind of fuels into this justification. There's always going to be, the way they describe the neighborhoods and the way they describe crime coming into our neighborhoods. That's just how they see people of color in this country. And it's just there's always going to be a justification for someone getting shot. George Floyd was the only one I could think of where people really had nothing. Mm-hmm. But they will find the slightest transgression ever will somehow be used as justification for you to get shot by an officer.
Well, and even in that case, it's not like Fox was uniformly oh, George Floyd, I guess it's going to be hard to present him as a monster. So I guess, no, we got to take this seriously. I mean, they still tried to make it seem like something that doesn't necessitate any sort of reform. They still support chokeholds and all of that. So he had a run-in with the cops earlier. The cops know. How could it possibly influence them? They shot him in the back. He didn't do that. I don't he isn't. I want to grab each one of these people and shake and be like, he didn't shoot the cop 7 times in his back. Do you get that? Trying to present him as a dangerous person is going to be a little bit more difficult when he was the one who was lit up by the cops in his back. But again, like you said, it just doesn't seem like it's ever going to change. And how many of these stories have we talked about, not just over the years, but literally during these protests? The entire country, for the first time in a half century, is really thinking about this thing and focusing on it. And it has seemed to barely, if at all, have cut down on the number of needless deaths. There are still cops who are just waiting for their opportunity to gun someone down, despite all this national conversation and the focus and all of that. And so it doesn't seem to have affected the cops. And in terms of affecting the prospects for some sort of reform, well, we're a day into the RNC and we've had months of Donald Trump. He could have said something. Are they going to do anything? Are they going to do literally anything? No. because they don't think that any reform is needed. You could have a Jacob Blake every day. You could have a George Floyd every week. And you indeed do. And it doesn't matter to them. They don't believe that any change is necessary. And it's fundamentally because they're not the party of Jacob Blake or of George Floyd. They're the party of Patty McCloskeys and her husband. And they know that the cops are not routinely shooting in the back rich white people. That's pretty rare. And so if a few people have to die, it's not my people. That's really what they think. I want security. I want my suburbs or my castle in St. Louis to be secure. And if that means we need a fascist police force and border security and ICE and all of that, constantly like violating people's rights and sexually assaulting them and brutalizing them and murdering them, it doesn't affect me at all. That is how they're able to maintain this. And that's how they're able to ward off any sort of reform. And so Jacob Blake, thankfully, he was one of the rare instances where the person has thus far survived. But what about the next person? I don't know the next person's name. I don't know what city they're going to be in. But there's going to be one in a couple days. There's definitely going to be one in a week. And it's not going to be any more likely to spur any sort of change than the 1 or the 10 or the 100 or the 1,000 that came before it.
Yeah. I mean, this speaks to something that I've been frustrated with, and I know a lot of other progressives have been frustrated with, and it's the Democratic Party's just failure to meet this moment. I mean, you've got activists across the country rising up and organizing around this, talking about it and demanding, like, no, look, we want an end to this. This is once and for all. We want an end to this. And one of those policy solutions was defunding the police, stopping the militarization of police. And it just seems like the Biden campaign just can't even commit to that. And when recently presented with it, Biden was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to defund the police. He was like accused of or asked about defunding the police. No, I don't want to do that. Trump wants to do that. Trump wants to defund the police. And it's just like, dude, how do you go to the right of Trump on this issue? Like, this is just such like, how do you not think that through? That's such an easy answer. But it's just like, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to cater to moderates and they're trying to cater to the right for votes. And this leaves, the people who are victims of this in the crosshairs. And painting Black Lives Matter on the street and doing nothing isn't going to solve the problem. It was rich to see Muriel Bowser, who, in front of Black Lives Matter, painted on 16th Avenue, talking about that, the federal agents tear gassing and beating protesters in Lafayette Park, when her own police department was there doing it too. Like, this isn't just a Trump thing. And de Blasio painting Black Lives Matter in front of Trump Tower. This is not a Trump thing. De Blasio presides over the NYPD, which hit people with their cars and have since said, it was self-defense and they should have gotten out of the way. You are directly in charge of the people who are the problem. Do something about it. And when people painted on the street after Black Lives Matter, defund the police, she had them paint over it. She had the city paint over it. So it's all an aesthetic. It's all performative, completely hollow.
Yeah, de Blasio's been so pathetic on this. I just want to read one more graphic, just because, like, sometimes so much is normalized. So much is normalized that shouldn't be normalized. So the Kenosha County District Attorney, Michael Gravely, is investigating the shooting. And I'm going to jump ahead of this next graphic because Gravely says, we're asked to make 2 determinations, but I'm only going to read the first. 1, did any officer in this case commit any crimes? That's all I got to say. You want to know what's been normalized? You've seen the video. It's an open question as to whether a crime was even committed. Because maybe it wasn't. You know what? Maybe the law is set up in a way that you can run up on someone's back and unload your gun into their back for no reason, paralyze them, come damn close to killing them, and maybe it's not actually illegal. Maybe it's totally fine. Maybe they're going to be okay. And almost certainly they will be. How pathetic. A country. Like, imagine going to the citizens of other countries and showing them the video and saying, hey, we're looking into this. Maybe it's illegal, but probably not. How pathetic. How pathetic. Okay, let's just read a few comments before we jump to the next topic. Bart, our producer, has left a comment in our thing for Jordan saying, just a friendly reminder, you're still in my book of cool, even though you did not see the Batman trailer, but I admit it looks pretty good. They're taking a cue from the Joker, more mystery and suspense and less action. I think I'm in for seeing it, but still, MCU is not cinema. Bart, stay out of my chat. Anyway, you're crazy. Okay, let's see. Tom Will on Twitch said, I got through a lot of alcohol watching last night. That's a good way to do it. Maybe I'll drink tonight. I'm going to be leading our coverage later on tonight with Ben Dixon as we go through night 2, in which Melania will be speaking, Eric Trump will be speaking, and presumably other Trumps, I guess. I guess that's what they have. The kid who sued CNN is going to be speaking. This is a political party. It's just like the family members and the kid who sued CNN. Kelly June says, we all love John regardless of his hair length. Yes, I did cut my hair this morning. Thank you for noticing. Okay. Al Mark says, we should never stop. This is a super chat. We should never stop sharing this video, the last one or the one before that. Not until things actually change. IDGAF, how uncomfortable it makes people. Yeah, well, look, I mean, we're joined on the show today by Jordan, who did just about more than anybody else this year to make sure that people confronted the dark reality of police brutality in video form on social media. So thank you for all that. Kate says, TYT community tab and member streams are unavailable on iPad. They say I need a computer, which as a disabled person I can't use. What can I do? Kate, I'm going to save this. I don't immediately have any answer. I don't know what would be causing that, but I will try to find out. Kate, thank you for super chat, as well as TDZ, thank you. Sam Dean says, g'day, bro. It's my 41st birthday. Love what you do, mate. Cheers from Oz. Sam Dean, cheers to you and happy birthday, and to Oz as well. Brian says, when I first saw the RNC lineup, I thought it was a satire article. Yeah. So, Jordan, did you see that? Do you know Jenna Friedman on Twitter, the comedian? So she got in like all this trouble because she tweeted that the guy on the swim team in like Stanford or whatever was going to be speaking. And the reason that like people were mad was because, yeah, you see that and you immediately think, yeah, they would. Is that crazier than the McCloskeys? Yeah. Maybe a little, not that much. Red Cat says, America doesn't need to be run like a business. It needs to be run like a family home. We need an adult. Yeah, ideally an adult who actually cares about the problems we face, you know, and doesn't just, you know, have a little bit more empathy. And Nikki Clark says, John, when you get worked up, your passion sings to my soul. Thank you. Your empathy makes me feel less alone. Thank you, Nikki. I appreciate that. And you saying that makes me feel less alone. So thank you. My God, there are so many adorable dogs in our chat. Issa tweeted one at hashtag TDR Live. And I don't often ask this. So a lot of, you know, people who do YouTube or Instagram or Twitch or whatever, they want to get like free stuff. They want to get like a monitor. Like Jordan's probably going to get like cool Twitch stuff or something for some company. Issa, could you send me your dog? Like, I know that you love it or whatever, but like I will too, and I want it. So if you could send me that dog, that'd be great. I want your dog. Anyway. Okay, with that, let's talk about the future. And about the current Biden strategy. I don't know if it's coming, so I'm going to give it a second. Nice. Joe Biden's strategy is something. We've talked about it quite a bit. One aspect I'd like to focus on, though, was pretty clear with the DNC, and that was that this is not designed to get people like me or our guest Jordan, us lefties, to really be all that enthusiastic. There wasn't really anything for us, but there was a lot of Republicans, and so it seems fair to say that they think that their path to victory is getting Republicans to vote for them. Okay, well, we're going to talk about whether we think that that's a good goal. But is it a realistic goal? I don't know, because the new CBS News poll shows this. Let's bring this up. Republicans, are they voting for Biden? Well, 5% of them plan to. 5%. Notably, 2 percentage points higher only than the Dems that are going to vote for Trump. And for context, as Waleed Shahid pointed out on Twitter, right now, that 5% that he's getting is lower than the 8% of Republicans who voted for Obama in 2008, 6% who voted for Obama in 2012, and 7% who voted for Hillary Clinton, the person that Republicans hate more than anyone else in the known galaxy. And yet Joe Biden is at 5%. So let's take stock, Jordan. Is this looking like a good strategy?
So based solely on this poll, no. I mean, this is a 2% net for Joe Biden. That is pretty insignificant in the grand scheme of things. So granted, this is I assume a national poll, and really it's going to boil down to what's going to happen in states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Florida, North Carolina, the key swing states. So there's more to it than this, but off the bat, not great. And this is what people were saying. Like, people said, like, this isn't going to happen. This is a pipe dream. They tried it in 2016. They are running a very similar campaign to 2016. Oh, Trump's a bad guy. Trump's a fraud. He's lying. This candidate, our Dem candidate, is better than Trump. Not too extreme. We swear we're not extreme. We're better than Trump. We tried that in 2016, and it didn't work. I think there was obviously a large component was racially motivated and like scapegoating racial minorities and immigrants. But there is a contingent, and I would imagine also in this poll, 47% of independents are going Trump. Part of it is that people are fucking tired of this system.
They are. They are all sorts of things about this. It's okay. It's okay. That would be fit for an RNC speech. No, but anyway, they're going for Donald Trump, and look, I don't believe. I know that we occasionally say like his base hasn't been affected at all by the last few years. It has a little bit, but clearly not that much. Clearly not that much. And still, 3% of Democrats want to vote for Donald Trump. How are you a Democrat at that point? Like, I know that like you can say that you are, but like, are you really 3%? That seems weird. So as a strategy, here's the thing. They always do this. At presidential elections, and also in how they choose their candidates too. Senate elections always are predicated on, we got to get the person who's just slightly to the left of the Republican and run as a Republican, and maybe we'll win that way. And the thing is, I've never really agreed with the people who are like the Democrats like to lose or they're paid to lose or anything like that. But it is fair to say, when we're talking about our anxieties or fears about how an election might go, not everyone has as much to lose in an election, really. And, if Joe Biden follows the Hillary Clinton strategy and loses again, will the Democrats dislike that? I think so. I'm not one of the people who are like, doesn't matter to all of them, but it clearly matters less in terms of their livelihood, chance of dying of a disease, all of that, than for many other Americans. And so, is it possible that that's influencing their willingness to go down this same path? To think, well, maybe they can convince themselves, well, Hillary almost won if you took 50,000 votes and divvied it up. So you know what? I'm going to roll the dice again. And it is really gambling. That's all it is. They are willing to gamble on Hillary Clinton. Just in this case, it's Joe Biden, but the same exact strategy, because if they lose, it isn't the worst possible thing for them. They're not dead if they lose. They're not on the streets if they lose. Other people will be. Other people will die and lose their livelihood and all of that. But not the strategists, not the centrist Democratic reps and senators and the head of the DNC and all of that. They'll be fine, honestly. And so, I don't know. Like, I have so much anxiety, Jordan. Yesterday on the show, we were talking about how it's looking like Trump is going to, no matter what the current state of it is, he's going to approve a vaccine in October. Like, people from the FDA are like, no, there's this one that Britain's working on that like he's totally going to okay, even if it's not ready, even if it's not safe. And I really do think that if he does that, that could swing 5% of the electorate right there in a couple of days, just like last time in the run up to the election.
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to be a battle on the margins, and it shouldn't be. I apologize for that slip, but I'm very angry lately. I'm infuriated. How do you fail to meet this moment? Half the country's out of work, a third of the country cannot pay their housing bills, and millions of people have lost their health insurance because through the insistence of both Republicans and Democrats, they want to tether it to employment. That is a broken system, and you offer nothing to fundamentally change that. As the problems are staring you in the face, you say nothing's going to change. Biden is walking back his commitment to a public option. No one should have to live in fear over these types of things, these essentials in the richest country on earth. That is so profoundly broken, and I think this poll really reflects that sentiment, that people see that and they're fed up. They're disillusioned with the entire system, and why would they buy into Joe Biden, who had a chance in the Obama administration to fix these problems? And now you're saying, oh, yeah, no, I'm the guy to fix it. Well, why? What were you doing? You had 2 years where you had a complete and total majority, and you had 6 more years in office. And you could, through executive orders or other changes, through bureaus or departments. What happened? Why didn't you push for these things?
Yeah. I mean, if Biden wins, I'm gonna feel like for a day, I'm gonna feel good because we'll have moved past what happened. Then for the next 3 months, his lame duck months, you better buckle up because it's gonna be a wild ride. And then it is gonna be 4 years of just crushing disappointment and news that's only like sort of hypothetically a little bit better than it would have been if he'd lost. Like, it's gonna be rough. It's still better. Don't come for me. It's still better, but it's still gonna be depressing. It's still gonna be a fight. It's just, you're choosing who you fight. Okay. Let's just touch base with 1 or 2 more. Now there are cats in the TDR Live. Man, if you're not on the TDR Live, you're not seeing animals. You're not seeing animals at all. But I am. Thank you. That's Susie, very cute. Okay, Percolator says, cool shirt, John. Like it so much, I went ahead and bought one just like it. Nice. I just got this one recently. This is in gray. I have the black as well. Spending a lot of time indoors, and I don't wear anything other than t-shirts, so it works. Jared Kraft says, it is so genuinely sad that the song of the races haven't changed in multiple centuries, which is black people are going to be near you and treated like equals. Be afraid, and it works every time. Yeah. Yeah, and I know we made it pretty clear when we were talking about the McCloskeys, but this is just an explicitly racist convention. That's all it is. Like, honestly, that's all it is. Like, sure, they'll occasionally say that Trump is going to bring the economy back or whatever, but like, what detailed? Like, there's no infrastructure plan. There's no healthcare plan. They're not revealing anything. It's the mob is coming for you. Be afraid. You know what? It's economic anxiety, basically. That's what they're running on. Anyway, Marty Hunt says, Greg Abbott said, if any city in Texas defunds the police, their property tax will be frozen. SK says, I'm so sick of the boogeyman argument made by the establishment. Trump is such a low bar you could roll on the ground and still pass it. Yeah. Yeah. Jordan, we're getting requests in the chat for your cat. Does your cat happen to be around?
No, she's in the other room sleeping.
So what we got to get, I like your new setup, but there's no shelves. We need to get like a rope ladder that your cat can like claw up as the show goes on.
Well, she climbs up on this computer tower often.
Okay,
Yeah,
feel free to pan over to it if she does.
I will.
Nice. Okay. Okay, so let's go to our last story. There has not been a lot of light news today. I apologize, but hey, you go to war with the country you got, not the country you want. Okay. Portland has obviously been the site of a lot of chaos over the past few months. Police have been engaged in a months-long effort to just brutalize the protesters there. Trump sent in his, interstate goon squad. And you also have right-wingers. And the right-wingers, it turns out, are being treated a little bit differently by Portland police than the protesters that have been there for a few months. Over this last weekend, police apparently took an entirely hands-off approach to the fighting they saw, even as the demonstrations grew more violent than ever. The Proud Boys and their far-right friends attacked and intimidated anti-fascist protesters using paintball guns, mace, fireworks, aluminum bats, and various firearms. One of them, a Proud Boys organizer named Alan Swinney, was seen pointing a gun at protesters, his finger on the trigger. Over the loudspeaker, police encouraged those present to, quote, self-monitor for criminal activity. So when it was just civil rights protesters, the police were clubbing people, tear gassing people, driving their cars into people, anonymously kidnapping people. As soon as the right-wing thugs come and start attacking people, suddenly The cops just kind of want to watch. They want to stand back and see how it goes. They certainly don't want to lock up any of these right-wingers. I know that for Portland, this isn't a new thing, Jordan, but I am very worried about what could end up happening, what the cops will stand by and allow to happen.
Yeah, I think as we've seen with demonstrations and rallies and events, call them, in Portland over the past few years, the police have been, notoriously sympathetic to right-wing fringe groups. And we've seen like the distortion of narratives out of those areas and those cities as well through people like Andy Ngo. Completely distorting what happened. If you recall the hammer incident on the bus, where the Proud Boys were like hitting people with hammers and someone threw it back at them, and it's like Andy Ngo just put that part up and was like, "Oh wow, look what Antifa is doing to these poor protesters." Mm-hmm. It's just it's a mess out there, and the police are quietly hand in hand with these fringe groups. But this is democratically controlled area, so the kind of whole vote blue no matter who thing doesn't really resonate with me when I see things like this.
Yeah, and like I said, like you can see reports of when the white supremacist march in Portland, they would generally be treated very well by the cops. This is like a long-standing thing. But think about it too. Like, let's acknowledge that this strategy of the cops, their ideological approach to different groups, is also like arguably kind of suicidal, because like those right wingers, I want to tell the cops, do you get that they kill cops, that they ambush and kill cops? Like, they've already killed multiple cops during these protesters. Not Antifa. I don't care what Janine Pirro says. It doesn't actually happen. But right wingers are killing protesters and they are killing cops. You're protecting them today. They might be ambushing you tomorrow. Like those Boogaloo boys, you think that like, oh, we're cool because like we kind of have the same political objectives. No, their political objectives involve you possibly being shot in the head. But the cops feel such an affinity that they'll ignore all of that and just believe the BS that's been said about Antifa. It's just like, I feel bad for those cops. Like, I know some have been brainwashed. Some are probably more conscious of what's going on, but they're protecting people that would be perfectly fine with seeing many of them end up dead if that, escalates us into the race war that they want and all of that. It's just let's turn to another aspect on this story, because this is crazy. When I saw this, I didn't believe it. But so we've been talking for a long time about how, obviously they've been tear gassing people. Portland, the protesters have been tear gassed for literally months at this point. Do you know how bad it's gotten? The amount of caustic gas, reportedly the variant known as CS gas, which one Portland police official insisted was different than tear gas, sprayed in downtown Portland, has basically coated the sidewalks and drains of the city since May 25th. So for months. It's been so much that among local watchdog agencies, including those who oversee Portland's water infrastructure, they're worried about the effect of pollution from the constant gassing. And it appears that little is publicly known about the environmental effects of the chemicals in the tear gas itself. But the Oregon DEQ is, they're saying that they're worried about lead, copper, barium, zinc, and a number of other chemicals as well. Like, that's how bad it's gotten, that the weapons they're using against these protesters are possibly so prevalent now that it can be contaminating Portland's water supply. But are we going to learn anything from this? Doesn't seem like it, not after the past few months.
No, I mean, this really shows to the length of militarization of police in America. Like, not only are they just beating protesters to a pulp, like not only are they assaulting them and suppressing their rights, it's now the weapons that they're using, which you could make a case is just violates different international conventions on human rights, are now also polluting the environment. It's just like, at what point does someone say, oh, hey, maybe we've gone too far? Maybe when we've got police and military surplus gear and spraying protesters with chemicals, and now we're polluting the environment. Maybe now we've gone too far. But, again, this is just, the relationship between local governments and political leaders on both parties with the police is a corrupt one. There is no real accountability. And this is going to continue if nothing changes. And sadly, I don't think anything will soon.
Yeah, I mean, we've been through how many months now, these protests? And there's been a couple of cities maybe that have made minor little changes, like New York City, supposedly banned chokeholds. Yeah, right. And that's it. Like, that's it. Like, we're supposed to be a democracy, hypothetically. Like, we tell ourselves that to feel better about ourselves. You can have nationwide protests for months and nothing will come of it. No change. Not even the most minor. Not even just, hey, could you stop murdering as many people? Like, you could still murder some people, but even less people. Could you just less? No. Literally nothing. And this is supposed to be such a democracy that we're not supposed to complain about anything. We're so exceptional. We're so amazing. We shouldn't even criticize anyway. So yeah, I apologize, Jordan, for ending the show on kind of a down note. It's not usually my goal, but kind of dark times in America. So we appreciate you joining us and trying to make it a little bit more bearable. Where can people find more of your work?
I'm on Twitter at Jordan Uhl, and on Twitch at really_chill_guy.
Nice. Everybody go take a look at that. Jordan, thank you as always. We appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
And for those of you at home, let me read just a few more of your comments before we close. I got to prep for my interview with Varsity and Prakash. Very excited for that coming up soon. I will remind you once again, later on today, starting at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, I'm going to be leading TYT through the second night of the RNC, and I'm going to be joined by Ben Dixon, which is going to be awesome. That's going to be available on the Young Turks. Let's see. Okay. Somebody's coming. Punchy Paint says they need to have the demon sperm doctor speak. They might. It's risky, but they might. Like, I've been wondering, are they going to have an open QAnon person speak? Are you sure that they won't? You don't think that, like, Marjorie, whatever face is, might not speak? She might. Okay. Joel B says Kim G gave Dwight Salesman of the Year speech. Blood will move the wheels of history. Nice. Andre Clone says, damn, why was Beavis at the RNC? I was waiting for him to say he was the great Cornholio. By the way, Matt Gaetz is a tool. Matt Gaetz, by the way, I don't listen to him give speeches very often. He's barely a human. Like, that seemed like a CGI construct that was giving that speech. And it's not just the crazy, like, the inch-thick makeup that he was wearing. That was not a real human. Das Boyce Fleisch says, where are the board games? This looks so studio-ish. I can't process. Well, look, to be fair, everybody, I brought in board games. Those are board games. Look, you got Forbidden Desert. You got some Jaipur. That's Fortress America, the U.S. under attack. Okay? In that world, we're being attacked, I think, by the Russians and the Chinese. I'm having it because, like, I feel like we're under attack, but by the U.S. government. So we got that for you. Anyway, Madeline says, PDX groups have long been sympathetic to right-wing groups. I live in Oregon. Oregon is actually pretty red. You would be surprised. I have definitely heard that. Okay, so over to Twitch. Fairycat says the only cure is more cowbell. It was Scream, though, so I think that might have been an addition to Kimberly Guilfoyle's speech. Okay. We need a second stimulus, brah says, I don't have a dog. This is on hashtag TDR Live, but I'm sure he was just as mischievous. Young Noah. Very cute. Thank you. So many adorable cats, everyone, and pups. Issa, send me your dog. I want all of them. Anybody can send me your dog. Oh my God, the cat. Mama needs a revolution. Hashtag BLM. Your cat Nugget is very, very cute. Luca the Destroyer is adorable. Everyone, you got to go to hashtag TDR Live. You get the cutest dogs and cats. Okay, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Got to go do that interview. Obviously more to come throughout the week. Got Jared Jackson joining me a little bit later on. We're going to have Michael Shore is going to join us on the show on Thursday to do some more breakdown of the RNC. I can't wait to see what he thinks about the way that American politics has turned over the past few months. And with that, I will see you later on for our coverage tonight. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe out there.